Charlie Munger, the partner of Warren Buffett and the billionaire himself, once said, "In my whole life, I have known no wise person who didn't read all the time."
It's just God's gift. If you're into self-education, there's nothing like reading. And of course, people who do a lot of it have an enormous advantage.
Rest in peace, Charlie, you truly were a genius. My name is Sharif and I'm currently writing a book. And in order to write a book, you need to read a lot of books. And in order to read a lot of books, you need to be able to make it more fun and more attractive, right? So I found a few ways and I'm going to share that in this video. I actually found 5 ways to make reading more interesting and more fun. So I'm going to share that. Plus, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys my top 3 favorite books of all time. So make sure to watch until the end. So this year I wrote Atomic Habits, and in Atomic Habits, James Clear writes about in order to create a habit, you need to make it attractive, easy, obvious, and satisfying. To make reading attractive, make sure to set goals that are actually achievable. Don't set crazy big goals like trying to read 1 book a week, because there's no way you're going to do that as a beginner. And even if you're advanced level, reading 1 book a week is crazy. That's a lot. Instead, create goals that are focused on input. And an example, and I used to use this trick, and that's try and read 1 page per day. And I know it sounds like nothing, but still, trust me, if you read 1 page a day and create a habit that every single day, at least you read 1 page a day, and even in days that you don't want to read, you're still able to just read 1 page. And in days that you really want to keep on reading, you'll probably finish a chapter. People who set goals have a 65% chance of completing them, but this success rate jumps up to 95% after they use an accountability partner. An accountability partner helps keep you motivated and focused, which means it makes it a little easier to create a reading habit. So me and my friends, we use this app called HabitShare. This isn't a paid ad. They should definitely pay me for saying this, but it's one of the best apps that I've been using for the past 6 months now, I think. And basically it's an app where you and your friends can set like daily habits. So I've got the habit that I want to go for a run 4 times a week. I want to read every single day. And at the end of the day, you basically check off your habit with green, and if you didn't do it, you fit in red. And this basically helps with 3 things. So the first one is accountability. You basically feel a sense of shame. You put a little pressure on yourself. And I think putting pressure on yourself is one of the best ways to keep yourself focused. And filling in the red also gives you a sense of shame, and a sense of shame often motivates you to actually keep up with your habit. Number 2 is tracking progress. Sometimes it's hard to see the bigger picture. So say for the past 4 days you've been slacking, then it's always good to just look back on the past month, and then in the past month you're like, oh, I actually didn't do that bad. Number 3 is social support. By having all these accountability partners, you also create like a sense of community, and that's definitely super motivating if you're trying to create a new habit that's completely new to you and quite difficult for you. So these days, many of us struggle to stay focused, including me myself. And the reason for that is just because we've become complete dopamine addicts. With TikTok, the rise of TikTok, it's super hard for young people to concentrate. And even like the older people, I've noticed that they're struggling with it too. And reading doesn't really create as much dopamine as TikTok, but there's still a way to make it more interesting. As mentioned in tip 1, in order to create a habit, it should feel easy and not like a burden. By reading and listening at the same time, you can finally make reading more fun. I've been using this tip for like the past 2 years, and it's completely changed my life. I wish someone would have told me this before I started reading. So there are 2 reasons why this helps. The first one is that the voice of the narrator has like a certain pace, and you have to keep up with the pace. So for you to check your phone and check a notification, you'll lose while you're on a book. So in order to keep pace, you need to keep your eyes focused on the page. And additionally, the second reason, you won't feel discouraged if you're a bad reader. And the reason for this is because the person reading the book basically reads out loud everything, so even the difficult words. And sometimes the difficult words aren't even that difficult, they're just difficult to read, but they're not difficult to pronounce. You probably use them day to day. So it's quite motivating. And a quick little bonus tip, if you have no clue what a word means, if you don't know the definition of a word, look it up. Like, feel no sense of shame. It's one of the smartest things you can do, because often a writer uses the same word multiple times in a book. So if the first time you didn't understand it, then you'll probably walk against that word again and you'll have the same issue. So you might as well just look up the definition from the start. Not much explanation is needed, but I'll just share what I do. Okay, so first of all, this is like the first thing I do. I make sure to text everyone back. I make sure to call everyone back that I needed to call. I make sure to DM everyone back that I needed to DM. That way it isn't like a thought that I'm thinking about while reading. After that, I turn my phone off completely. Not on Do Not Disturb, no, completely. Because with Do Not Disturb, you're still able to touch your phone and turn it on and easily like access your notifications and access Instagram and whatever. So just completely turn it off. Best thing is to even leave it in your room or somewhere else or under the couch, I don't care. Just out of your sight. And don't forget, this should be a fun thing. So I set tea for myself. On Fridays, I even drink wine. Then I gather a pen, a marker, and a notebook. And I do all of this before I start reading. You don't want to do this in the middle of reading. You just want to stay focused while reading. You don't want to create any excuse to stand up and do something else. And on Fridays, and this is more like an advanced trick and I don't necessarily recommend it, but it does work for me and a lot of people have laughed at me for doing this. But basically I watch 15 minutes of Netflix, 15 minutes of reading, 15 minutes of Netflix, 15 minutes of reading, and so on and so on. And I only do this on Fridays or weekends and not that often. But when I do it, I can often read for like 2 to 3 hours. So that's like 6 hours in total with Netflix included. So that's a long time. But for me, it works. It keeps things interesting. And like I said before, this whole thing should be fun to you. It shouldn't feel like something that's a burden. It shouldn't feel like a punishment. It should feel like you're actually doing something that you want to do. And again, this is like one of those tips I wish someone told me before I started reading, because I just spent so much time, I wasted so much time just reading shitty books. Books that I didn't enjoy, books that I was only reading because I wanted to fill it in Goodreads that I finished and completed the book. And it's an ego thing. There's no reason you should do it. You have no moral obligation to finish a book. Be loyal to your girlfriend, not a book. That's what I tell all my friends. So for example, I'm currently reading this book, The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. This book could fit into 100 pages. There's no need to use more than 200. There's no need to do that. So if you got the feeling that the author is talking about the same thing over and over and over again, and you already have the feeling that you understand what he's trying to say, then there's no need to read it again. Just go to the next chapter. Because the goal of reading is to understand something, especially if it's non-fiction. And if you understand it, then there's no need to read it again. So just move on. You're just wasting your time. One of my favorite entrepreneurs and philosophers, his name is Naval Ravikant, and he had a great quote. Thanks to electronic books, I have 50 to 70 books I can open at any time on my Kindle or iBooks, and I just bounce around between them. I do the same thing. I think I'm currently reading like 7 or 8 books, and I know many of you are thinking that's just so not disciplined of you, but I don't agree. As long as I'm reading every single day and spending the hours, then we're good. As long as I'm remembering the information, I'm writing down the information, I'm using the information, then we're good. There's no need to finish a book from A till Z if you don't enjoy it. So as promised, to finish this video, I'm gonna show you guys my top 3 favorite books. I'll start with the first one of my all-time favorites. This isn't in order, by the way. The Emperor's Handbook, Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. Meditations is basically the diary of Marcus Aurelius, and Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor. I always tell my friends that it's basically Anne Frank, her diary, but then just the Roman version and way better. I think that's the perfect explanation, and he basically just shares his wisdom, he shares his thoughts, and he shares his struggles. It's definitely a book I recommend. For all levels of reading, it's quite easy and you don't need to read it in order. So if there are any quotes that you don't understand, you can just move on to the next quote. The second one is Nero. This is more for the history buffs. This is a biography by Anthony Everitt on Nero, the Roman Emperor Nero. Anthony has written many great books. He's also written a book about Augustus, the Roman Emperor. But the one about Nero is really great. It's one of my favorites. He basically just goes through the whole life of the Roman Emperor Nero. And many of you know Nero as the devil, kinda. I guess so. He's not really famous for being a good guy. But this book kind of shows a different side. Plus, it also gives you a history lesson on what happened before Nero. So if you're interested in Roman history in general, then it's one of the books I definitely recommend. The third book is a book that I don't have with me because the book just isn't available in Europe. And it's a book called Driven. It's an autobiography by Larry H. Miller. And Larry H. Miller is an entrepreneur from America. And basically, it's one of those books that after reading, you just feel like you just went through a roller coaster of emotions. I learned so many lessons that I used in my own business, but I also cried while reading the book in some chapters, because some chapters were about how he got sick and how he just felt bad about wasting so much time becoming a billionaire, and that he wished he'd just spend more time with his family. And it's just so sad. But at the same time, you also get like so many business lessons about how he basically created an empire. I think in total he eventually had like 70 companies or 100 companies. Like, it's crazy. It's one of my favorites. If anyone is watching this and you're from America and you want to give me the book, then DM me on Instagram, and that would be nice. And if any of you want to read the book, send me a message via Instagram @Sharif, and I'll send you the free PDF. So that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, and I hope to see you guys soon. Ciao.